The red pen scratched methodically across the paper, marking another historical date incorrect. Callum Mercer suppressed a sigh as he worked through the stack of freshman history tests. The question had been straightforward. When did the Cuban Missile Crisis begin? The student had written November 1962, a month too late. Such details mattered in history, as in his other life. Timing was everything. Teaching wasn't just his cover. He genuinely wanted his students to understand the significance of past events. Those who didn't learn from history were doomed to repeat it. Cal knew this better than most. He'd seen the patterns repeat themselves across 4 continents. In operations too classified to exist in any official record, the grandfather clock in the corner of his home office ticked steadily, marking time as the evening deepened. Its rhythmic sound reminded him of a heartbeat monitor in a hospital. Regular, reliable, until it wasn't. Outside his window, the Denver skyline glittered against the darkening sky, the mountains a looming shadow beyond. The city lights reflected off the fresh snow on his window ledge, creating dancing patterns that could almost hypnotize someone who didn't maintain constant situational awareness. Anyone looking in, they'd see nothing more than a dedicated teacher grading papers on a quiet Thursday night. His office appeared ordinary. Family photos on the walls, academic certificates framed with care, bookshelves lined with historical texts and teaching materials. The scene was a perfect, meticulously crafted over years. They wouldn't see the reinforced window glass, imperceptible unless you knew what to look for. They wouldn't notice how the family photos were arranged to reflect movement in the hallway, or that the antique letter opener on his desk was actually a custom-made throwing knife. They wouldn't spot the concealed weapon in his desk drawer, nor the surveillance equipment carefully hidden throughout the house. And they certainly wouldn't guess that Cal Mercer, age 38, mild-mannered history teacher, was actually one of the CIA's most effective deep-cover operatives, that he picked up another test paper, noting the trembling handwriting that betrayed test anxiety. Cal had learned to read people's handwriting the way others read faces. Shaky letters meant nervousness. Sharp, angular writing often indicated aggression. Delilah's handwriting was elegant, flowing perfect for the love notes she used to leave in his lunch. He hadn't seen one of those in months now. At the time, he'd attributed it to the natural evolution of a 5-year marriage. Now, he wondered if there had been other signs he'd missed. The vibration of a phone against the kitchen counter broke his concentration. Not his phone, Delilah's. His wife had left it there when she'd gone upstairs to shower. Usually, Cal wouldn't have given it a second thought. Private messages were private. Trust was the foundation of any marriage. But something about the timing, the way the device buzzed insistently, drew his attention. The screen lit up. From his position at the desk, he could just make out the preview of a message. "Don't worry, baby. Once the Hitmen take care of him, the money and house are ours." Time seemed to crystallize. The grandfather clocks ticking faded to silence. The city lights beyond his window blurred into a meaningless glow. Every instinct honed through years of operations and survival sharpened to a knife's edge. His pulse remained steady, his breathing controlled, but his mind accelerated to combat speed, processing implications and possibilities with mechanical precision. Cal set his red pen down with deliberate care, his movements controlled despite the surge of adrenaline. The message remained on the screen, its words burning into his mind. His wife, the woman he'd married 5 years ago after a whirlwind romance, the person he'd allowed closest to his carefully guarded life, was plotting his murder. The shower continued to run upstairs, water drumming against tile in a rhythm he knew well. Delilah always took long showers, usually spending at least 20 minutes under the hot water. She claimed it helped her think, helped wash away the stress of her day. He wondered now what kinds of thoughts she'd been washing away, moving silently. Cal crossed to the kitchen counter. Years of training made his movements fluid, predatory. Even now, muscle memory kept him in the shadows, avoiding the sight lines of windows. He picked up Delilah's phone, quickly bypassing her security. He'd memorized her passcode months ago, a basic security measure that now proved crucial. She'd changed it recently from their anniversary date to her mother's birthday. Another sign he should have noted. The full message thread appeared, weeks of conversations scrolling before his eyes. Everything's set up with Marco's crew. They're professionals. It'll look like a robbery gone wrong. What about the insurance company? Will they investigate? Don't worry, baby. Once the hitmen take care of him, the money and house are ours. Each message hit like a physical blow, but Cal's face remained impassive. The last time he'd felt this level of betrayal, he'd been in Damascus, watching a trusted contact sell information to terrorists. That man had disappeared without a trace. Now, reading these messages, Cal felt the same cold fury building in his chest. He scrolled methodically through weeks of exchanges, his photographic memory capturing every detail. The messages painted a clear picture. Delilah had been systematically emptying their joint accounts, moving money into hidden accounts she thought he couldn't trace. Small amounts at first, then larger transfers as she grew bolder. She'd been meeting with someone named Red Vaughn, a name that triggered immediate recognition from Cal's intelligence background. Vaughn was a low-level criminal with cartel connections, the kind of man who thought himself far more clever than he actually was. Cal had seen his type before, ambitious enough to be dangerous, not smart enough to survive long-term. The fact that Delilah was involved with someone like him was almost insulting. The hitmen they contracted were led by Marco Salazar, a former cartel enforcer turned contract killer. Cal knew the name Salazar had a reputation for brutality, but also for sloppiness. He left too many loose ends, too many witnesses. It was why he'd never risen higher in the cartel hierarchy. In Cal's world, Salazar was considered a blunt instrument, useful for creating chaos, but ultimately disposable. The sound of the shower stopped, pipes groaning in the walls. Cal quickly memorized the relevant details from the messages, then replaced the phone exactly as he'd found it, down to the millimeter. By the time Delilah's footsteps sounded on the stairs, he was back at his desk, red pen in hand, apparently absorbed in grading papers. She appeared in the doorway, wearing her favorite silk robe, the dark blue one he'd bought her in Hong Kong last year. Her hair was wrapped in a towel, skin still flushed from the hot water. 5 years of marriage, and he'd thought he knew every nuance of her expression. Now he saw something else, there a calculated warmth that didn't quite reach her eyes, a tension in her shoulders that spoke of anticipation rather than affection. Still grading papers, honey? You work too hard. Her voice carried the same concern it always had, but now he heard the false note in it. Like an instrument slightly out of tune, Cal looked up, meeting her eyes. He'd spent years perfecting his covers, learning to project exactly what people expected to see. Now he let her see what she wanted, a tired, devoted husband, slightly overwhelmed by his teaching duties. These tests won't grade themselves, he replied with a small smile. How was your shower? Perfect. She crossed the room, her bare feet silent on the hardwood floor. Leaning down, she kissed his cheek, and the scent of her expensive perfume, the kind he'd bought her for their last anniversary, wafted over him. Don't stay up too late. I won't. He reached up, catching her hand before she could pull away. Her skin was still warm from the shower as he pressed his lips to her knuckles. I love you. He felt it then, the slight stiffening of her muscles, the fraction of a second too long before she responded. I love you too. Her pulse had quickened under his fingers, a physiological response she couldn't control. That slight hesitation, that acceleration of heartbeat, confirmed everything. Delilah pulled away, heading for their bedroom. Cal watched her go, his expression unchanging even as his mind raced. The woman he'd married, the life they'd built together, it had all been a lie. Or perhaps it had been real once, before money and greed had corrupted it. It didn't matter now. In his world, betrayal had only one answer, that he turned back to the test papers, red pen moving mechanically as he waited for her to fall asleep. Each wrong answer, he marked, felt like another nail in the coffin of his old life. The quiet suburban existence, the pleasant fiction of being just another high school teacher, all of it would have to end, but first, he had work to do. Careful, methodical work. The hunt was about to begin. Once he was certain Delilah was asleep, Cal pulled out his secure laptop from a hidden compartment in his desk. The device wasn't issued by the CIA. It was his personal insurance policy, purchased through channels that couldn't be traced. He learned early in his career that official resources could be compromised. Better to have your own tools, your own methods. His fingers moved across the keyboard with practiced efficiency as he accessed databases most people didn't know existed. The CIA credentials he used weren't his official ones. Those would leave too obvious a trail. Instead, he used one of his ghost accounts, created years ago for situations that required absolute discretion. The first name he searched was Red Vaughn. The database returned a comprehensive file that made Cal's jaw tighten with disgust. Multiple arrests, but few convictions, thanks to well-paid lawyers who always seemed to appear at exactly the right moment. The pattern was clear. Vaughn had protection from somewhere high up, but not high enough to keep him out of trouble entirely. Amateur, Cal muttered, scrolling through arrest records. Assault charges, extortion attempts, failed schemes that reeked of desperation. Vaughn had connections to several cartels, but was considered too unreliable for major operations. Recent activity showed mounting debts and growing pressure from his cartel contacts that a surveillance photo showed Vaughn outside a known cartel front in downtown Denver. He wore an expensive suit that couldn't quite hide his crude nature, like putting cheap wine in an expensive bottle. The timestamp was from 3 weeks ago, right around when the messages with Delilah had started. Cal dug deeper, pulling financial records. Vaughn had been making regular deposits into an offshore account, amounts that matched withdrawals from one of Delilah's hidden accounts. The correlation was obvious to anyone who knew where to look. But something about the pattern bothered him. "You're not smart enough for this," Cal whispered to Vaughn's image. "Someone's pulling your strings." He switched his focus to Marco Salazar. The file that appeared made Vaughn look like a schoolyard bully by comparison. Former enforcer for the Sinaloa cartel, Salazar had earned a reputation for excessive violence, even by cartel standards. 3 years ago, he'd gone independent, taking a crew of equally brutal men with him. Cal studied the crime scene photos from Salazar's previous jobs. Each one was staged to look like a robbery or home invasion gone wrong. But the violence was always disproportionate, excessive. Salazar enjoyed his work too much to maintain true professional distance. Sloppy, Cal noted, examining the details of each case. Salazar's crew relied on brutality rather than finesse. They'd leave witnesses alive but traumatized, creating chaos that obscured their true purpose. It was effective in its own crude way, but it left too many loose ends that a new window popped up on his screen, an alert from one of his monitoring programs. Someone was accessing his life insurance policy records. Cal traced the connection back to its source, finding himself in a cheap motel security camera feed. The image quality was poor, but he could make out Delilah sitting on a bed, laptop open, talking to someone off-camera. Cal enhanced the audio. The motel's poor security no match for his equipment. "The policy's ironclad," Delilah was saying. $2.5 million plus the house. "Once it looks like a robbery gone wrong, the insurance company won't ask questions." "They better not." Rhett Vaughn stepped into frame, his expensive suit wrinkled from the day. "Marco's crew doesn't come cheap, and I've got people expecting their cut. Don't worry about the money." Delilah's voice carried a confidence that made Cal's blood run cold. "Everything's been arranged. The accounts are ready. Once it's done, we'll have more than enough to disappear." Cal switched off the feed, his expression hardened. The pieces were falling into place. The life insurance policy they'd upgraded 6 months ago, the one Delilah had insisted on, claiming she worried about his safety as a teacher in these troubled times. The house in Denver's most exclusive neighborhood, now fully paid off thanks to his CIA consulting bonuses. They thought they had planned everything perfectly. A teacher with a large life insurance policy. A home invasion gone wrong. A grieving widow too traumatized to answer many questions. By the time anyone thought to look deeper, Delilah and Vaughn would be gone, living off his death benefit in some country without extradition. Cal opened another program, one he'd written himself for tracking financial movements. Delilah had been clever, or someone had advised her well in how she'd move the money. Small amounts transferred over time, converted through multiple accounts. To most observers, it would look like normal financial activity, but Cal had tracked money launderers who made her efforts look amateur. Within minutes, he had mapped the entire network. Accounts in the Cayman Islands, shell companies in Panama, a complex web of transfers designed to hide the true flow of funds. It was sophisticated work for a high school teacher's wife and a low-level criminal. "There you are," he murmured, finding the pattern. The structure was familiar. He'd seen similar setups in cartel operations. Someone with real experience had helped design this, someone well above Vaughn's pay grade. The question was why? What made a simple teacher's life insurance policy worth this level of attention? A soft sound from upstairs caught his attention. Cal quickly minimized his programs, years of training making the movement automatic. But it was just Delilah turning over in her sleep, her unconscious mind unaware that her carefully constructed plan was already unraveling. Cal leaned back in his chair, letting his mind process everything he'd learned. The betrayal wasn't simple greed. It was too elaborate, too well planned. Someone had seen an opportunity, using Delilah's dissatisfaction and Vaughn's desperation to set something bigger in motion. But they'd made a crucial mistake. They thought they were orchestrating a simple insurance scam, eliminating an ordinary teacher for a decent payout. Instead, they put themselves in the crosshairs of a ghost, a man whose real skills and identity were classified at the highest levels. Cal pulled up one last file, his own CIA service record, or at least a version that existed in official databases. Pages of blacked-out text and redacted missions painted a picture of a highly effective operative who specialized in making problems disappear. Permanently, the grandfather clock struck midnight, its chimes echoing through the quiet house. Cal began systematically erasing his digital trail, leaving no trace of his investigation. Let them think they still had the advantage. Let them believe their plan was proceeding perfectly. The hunt wasn't just beginning. The hunt had already begun, and his targets didn't even know they were being stalked. Cal reached for his secure phone, a device different from both his everyday phone and his CIA-issued one. This particular phone, connected to a network few people knew existed, accessible only to operatives who sometimes needed to work outside official channels. He sent a single text to a number even fewer possessed. Need to go dark. Personal matter. No agency involvement. The response came seconds later. Confirmed. Ghost protocol authorized. Happy hunting. A thin smile crossed his face as he deleted the messages. The agency wouldn't interfere. They trusted his judgment, and as long as he kept civilian casualties to zero, they would look the other way. It was one of the benefits of being their most effective operative. They knew sometimes the cleanest solutions happened off the books. He pulled up the building plans for their house on his laptop, studying them with new eyes. The security system he'd installed, supposedly because of recent break-ins in the neighborhood, would prove useful, but not in the way Delilah expected. Every camera, every sensor had a backup that reported only to him. When Marco's crew made their move, he'd see them coming, but first he needed to lay the groundwork. Cal opened a new document and began mapping out his strategy with military precision. The plan formed in his mind like a chess game. Each move calculated 20 steps ahead. Marco Salazar's crew would be the first target. Cal had already identified their weaknesses through their previous jobs. They followed patterns all predators did. They liked to study their targets for exactly 13 days before striking. They preferred to attack between 2 and 4 in the morning. They always entered through the back of the house. Assuming security would be weaker there, Cal wrote a note. Install new motion sensors in the back garden. Timer lights with irregular patterns. Let them think they were being clever, staying in the shadows. Those shadows would belong to him. Next, he detailed his approach to Red Vaughn. The man's cartel connections made him dangerous, but also vulnerable. Cal had dealt with similar situations in Mexico and Colombia. A few well-placed pieces of information, a few carefully orchestrated incidents, and the cartels would take care of that problem for him. He'd make it look like Vaughn had been skimming money, feeding information to rivals. The cartels had zero tolerance for disloyalty. Cal paused, his cursor blinking on the screen. Delilah, his wife, the woman who thought she could betray him and profit from his death. Her punishment would need to be special, watching everything fall apart, piece by piece, before she understood the full magnitude of her mistake. Personal connections are weaknesses, his CIA trainer had told him years ago. They're strings that others can pull. Cal had nodded, agreed, and then gone ahead and married Delilah anyway. He thought he could have both lives, the deep cover operative and the loving husband. Now he knew better. Love was indeed a weakness, but hatred? Hatred could be a strength. He began writing again, detailing how he would dismantle Delilah's world. First, her hidden accounts would mysteriously empty. the money vanishing into digital black holes. Then her carefully forged documents, the ones she planned to use for her escape, would be flagged in every database that mattered. Finally, her allies would turn against her. Each believing she had betrayed them, the grandfather clock struck 1, then 2. Cal worked steadily, each detail meticulously planned. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about sending a message. Anyone who thought they could cross him would learn the cost, that he was making final adjustments to his timeline when he heard soft footsteps on the stairs. Cal quickly closed his programs, pulling up a student's essay on his screen instead. Delilah appeared in the doorway, wrapped in their bedsheet. "Baby, please come to bed," she said, her voice carrying just the right note of sleepy concern. "Those papers can wait until tomorrow." Cal turned to look at her, standing there in the dim light. She was beautiful. He couldn't deny that. Her dark hair fell in waves around her shoulders, her skin pale in the moonlight streaming through the window. 5 years ago, that sight would have taken his breath away. Now he saw her differently, a predator wearing the skin of prey. "You're right," he said, standing and stretching as if tired. "I lose track of time when I'm grading." Delilah smiled, holding out her hand. "That's why you need me to remind you there's more to life than work." Cal took her hand, noting how perfectly she played her role. He wondered if she'd always been this good at deception, or if she'd learned it during their marriage. Either way, she was about to learn she was still an amateur compared to him. They walked upstairs together, her body warm against his side. In their bedroom, she curled up under the covers while he changed for bed. The routine was so normal, so familiar. But underneath the surface, everything had shifted. "I've been thinking," Delilah murmured as he slid under the covers. "We should take a trip soon. Maybe that cabin in the Rockies you've been talking about." Cal's mind instantly recognized the suggestion for what it was. They were already planning the location for his murder. The cabin would be isolated, perfect for staging a robbery gone wrong. He pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her temple. "That sounds perfect," he replied. "I could use a break from teaching." She relaxed against him, probably pleased that he'd taken the bait so easily. Within minutes, her breathing deepened into sleep. Cal lay awake, holding his would-be murderer, and felt nothing but cold determination. The time for love was over. Now it was time for revenge. The eastern sky was beginning to lighten when Cal finally closed his eyes. Through the window, he could see the first hints of dawn touching the Rocky Mountains. It looked like the beginning of any other day in Denver, but for Cal Mercer, it was the dawn of a hunt. And like any good hunter, he would be patient, methodical, precise. After all, revenge was a lesson best taught slowly, and he had always been an excellent teacher. As dawn approached, Cal returned to his office. Sleep wasn't an option, not with his mind running combat protocols. He needed to finalize his preparations to ensure every aspect of his response was perfect. Opening his laptop again, he began constructing detailed profiles of each player in this deadly game. Marco Salazar's file came first. Cal pulled up surveillance photos from various cartel operations, studying the man's methods. Salazar had a pattern when he killed. He liked to make examples of his targets. The brutality wasn't just violence, it was messaging. Cal could use that. He began writing a psychological profile. Salazar operates on fear. He doesn't just want to kill. He wants to terrify. This makes him predictable. He'll want to make my death spectacular, which means he'll take risks. Those risks will be his weakness. Cal opened another document, mapping out Salazar's crew. Each member had a history, vulnerabilities he could exploit. Jace Riggins, Salazar's second-in-command, had a gambling problem. Miguel Torres had a sister he was putting through college. Victor Kane had been flipping information to rival cartels. Every piece of information was a weapon in Cal's arsenal that he began crafting a series of events that would set them against each other. A whispered word here, a suspicious transaction there. By the time they came for him, their crew would be riddled with paranoia and distrust. Moving on to Rhett Vaughn's file, Cal's lip curled in disgust. The man was a study in mediocrity turned malicious. His criminal record showed escalating violence, but always with an edge of desperation. Cal recognized the type. Someone who blamed the world for his failures, who thought he deserved more than he'd earned. Your cartel connections make you feel powerful, Cal murmured, studying Vaughn's recent activities. Let's see how powerful you feel when they turn on you. He began composing emails, each one designed to look like intercepted communications. One would suggest Vaughn was working with federal authorities. Another would show evidence of skimmed profits. The timestamps would be perfect, the digital fingerprints untraceable. When he was done, every cartel contact would believe Vaughn had betrayed them, but it was Delilah's betrayal that required the most detailed planning. Cal pulled up their wedding photo, studying her face. She was laughing in the image, champagne glass raised in celebration. He remembered that day perfectly, the way she'd looked at him during their vows, the softness in her eyes when she'd said, "I do." All lies. Or perhaps not at first. Cal considered their relationship timeline, looking for the moment everything changed. The insurance policy increased 6 months ago stood out, but there had to be earlier signs. He began reviewing their joint accounts, tracking changes in spending patterns. There it was. 8 months ago, regular withdrawals began from their savings account. Small amounts at first, barely noticeable, but they aligned perfectly with Vaughn's deposits into his offshore accounts. That was when it started. When his wife began plotting his death, Cal opened a new document and began mapping out Delilah's world. Her friends, her social connections, her routine, everything that made her feel secure. Each element would be systematically dismantled. Her hidden accounts wouldn't just be emptied, they would be exposed. Anonymous tips would link her to various criminal enterprises. Her carefully maintained social status would crumble, but first he needed to establish his cover as the oblivious husband. Cal pulled up his teaching schedule, adding notes about upcoming lectures and assignments. He continued grading papers, attending faculty meetings, coaching the debate team. Every aspect of his public life would remain perfectly normal. He created a new email draft to the principal, requesting time off for a romantic getaway to the cabin. The wording was carefully chosen, enthusiastic but not overly so, mentioning how he and Delilah needed time to reconnect. It would establish his alibi, while reinforcing the image of a devoted husband. Next, Cal began preparing the cabin itself. He pulled up satellite imagery, studying the surrounding terrain. The location was remote, accessible by only one main road. Delilah and Vaughn would see this isolation as an advantage. They wouldn't realize he'd already begun modifying the property, that he accessed the cabin security system through a hidden server. Every camera, every sensor had been upgraded over the past year, each improvement disguised as routine maintenance. He'd added thermal imaging, motion detectors, and sound monitors that reported directly to his secure devices. The entire property was a surveillance web waiting to be activated. Cal opened his weapons cache inventory. Each hiding spot in the cabin contained specialized equipment devices that would allow him to monitor every conversation, track every movement. He'd hidden them months ago, telling Delilah he was just doing routine repairs. Even then, some part of him had been preparing for betrayal. Always have a contingency plan, his CIA trainer had taught him. Then have a contingency for your contingency. He began writing protocols for different scenarios, each one meticulously planned. If they sent scouts ahead, he'd feed them false information about his routine, that if they tried to hack the security system, they'd access a dummy network while his real surveillance continued, that if they brought in additional crew members, he had protocols to isolate and eliminate them without alerting the others. Each plan was detailed, precise, but flexible enough to adapt to changing circumstances. This wasn't just about survival. It was about control. Total, absolute control over every aspect of what was to come. Cal checked his watch. Almost time for his morning routine to begin. Soon he'd need to shower, dress, and drive to school, maintaining the perfect image of a dedicated teacher. His students would see the same Mr. Mercer they always did, patient, engaged, passionate about history, but beneath that facade, something else was emerging. The ghost, the operative who had eliminated threats across 4 continents, was awakening. This wasn't a CIA mission with rules of engagement and oversight. This was personal, and the only rule was simple. They would all pay for their betrayal. Cal began shutting down his systems, erasing all traces of his night's work. As he closed the final file, his phone buzzed with a message from Delilah. "Have a great day at school, honey. Love you." He smiled coldly at the message. Let her play her role. Let them all think their plan was proceeding perfectly. They didn't realize that every move they made, every step they took toward their goal, was actually leading them into his trap. The sun had fully risen now, painting the Rocky Mountains in shades of gold and pink. Cal stood at his office window, watching Denver come alive below. To the rest of the world, this was just another beautiful morning. But for him, it was the beginning of something else, a carefully orchestrated symphony of revenge that would end with a lesson none of them would live to remember. Time to teach, he whispered, straightening his tie. But the real lessons, the ones written in blood and betrayal, were still to come. The mountain road curved sharply as Cal guided their SUV higher into the Rockies. Beside him, Delilah gazed out the window at the snow-covered peaks, her face a perfect mask of contentment. She'd been particularly affectionate this morning, making his favorite breakfast, touching his arm, laughing at his jokes. If he hadn't known better, he might have believed her act. The trees are so beautiful with the snow, she said, reaching over to squeeze his hand. This weekend is exactly what we need. Cal squeezed back, noting how her pulse quickened slightly at the contact. You're right. No phones, no grating, no distractions. Just us. And the fireplace, Delilah added with a smile. Remember last time? How we sat there talking until midnight. I remember. Cal kept his voice warm, pleasant. That night had been 6 months ago, right around the time she'd first contacted Red Vaughn. He wondered if she'd been planning his death. Even then, the cabin came into view as they rounded the final bend. 2 stories of rough-hewn logs and wide windows. It looked like the perfect romantic getaway. What Delilah didn't know was that every inch of the property had been prepared for tonight's inevitable confrontation. Home sweet home, Cal said, pulling into the gravel driveway. He grabbed their bags from the trunk while Delilah unlocked the front door. The scent of pine and wood polish greeted them. He'd had the place cleaned recently, ostensibly as a surprise for her inside. Delilah immediately went to the thermostat. It's freezing in here. I'll get the heat going if you want to start the fire. Good plan. Cal carried their bags upstairs, using the moment alone to activate his surveillance system through his watch. The hidden cameras came online one by one, giving him eyes on every approach to the cabin. The thermal sensors were already picking up movement in the tree line. Marco's men doing their preliminary sweep when he came back downstairs. Delilah was in the kitchen unpacking groceries. Wine with dinner, she called out. I brought that red you love. Sounds perfect. Cal began arranging logs in the massive stone fireplace, positioning them precisely how he wanted them. The woodpile beside the hearth contained 3 specially treated logs that would produce thick smoke when burned, useful for obscuring infrared vision. The afternoon passed in a careful dance of normalcy. They cooked together, Delilah chopping vegetables while Cal marinated the steaks. They talked about his students, her work, plans for the summer. Anyone watching would have seen a happy couple enjoying their weekend away, but Cal noticed everything. The way Delilah checked her phone when she thought he wasn't looking. The slight tremor in her hands as evening approached. The way she positioned herself away from the windows as the sun began to set, casting long shadows through the trees. Delilah opened the wine. Should we sit by the fire? Let me get glasses, Cal replied, heading to the kitchen. Through the window, he caught movement of shadow that wasn't cast by trees. Marco's men were getting into position that he returned with the glasses, settling onto the couch beside Delilah. She curled against him, her head on his shoulder. The fire crackled, sending shadows dancing across the walls. It was almost peaceful. Cal. Delilah's voice was soft. Are you happy? He turned to look at her, studying her face in the firelight. Of course I am. Why do you ask? Sometimes I worry. She traced a finger along his arm. You work so hard, giving everything to your students. I just want you to have everything you deserve. The double meaning in her words might have gone unnoticed if he hadn't known better. Cal pressed a kiss to her forehead, feeling her slight flinch. You don't need to worry about me. A twig snapped outside loud enough to be deliberate. Delilah tensed against him. Did you hear that? She asked, her voice carefully concerned. Probably just a deer. Cal kept his tone casual. They come down from the higher elevations this time of year. Delilah stood, smoothing her sweater. I'll get more wine. As soon as she left the room, Cal activated the cabin's exterior lights through his phone. The sudden illumination would disrupt any night vision equipment Marco's men were using. He heard muffled curses from outside, at least 3 distinct voices that Delilah's footsteps hurried down the hallway. Not toward the kitchen, but toward the back door. Cal smiled coldly. Right on schedule, the first shots came through the front windows, glass shattering inward. Cal was already moving, flipping the heavy oak coffee table for cover. More shots followed, systematic and precise. They were trying to drive him toward the back of the cabin, where more of their team would be waiting. Cal! Delilah screamed from somewhere near the back door. Her voice carried just the right note of terror. She'd missed her calling. She could have been an actress, that a shadow moved past one of the broken windows. Cal reached under the couch, retrieving the weapon he'd hidden there months ago. The familiar weight felt comfortable in his hands. These men were used to terrorizing civilians, not engaging with trained operatives. That mistake would cost them dearly. Check the back, a gruff voice commanded from outside. Don't let him slip away. Cal moved silently through the shadows, using the smoke from his treated logs to obscure his movements. The first attacker came through the shattered window, weapon raised. Cal's strike was quick, precise. The man dropped without a sound, and a second man entered through the side door, sweeping the room with his rifle. House is clear on this side, he called out. Moving to the rest of his sentence was lost as Cal's knife found his throat. 2 down. The smoke was thicker now, filling the cabin with gray tendrils that would play havoc with their thermal imaging. Something's wrong, a voice said from outside. Kane's not responding. Spread out. Find him. Cal moved to the kitchen, keeping low. Through the window, he could see figures moving in the yard, their formations growing more erratic as uncertainty set in. These weren't the disciplined killers they pretended to be. They were thugs who relied on intimidation and superior numbers that a burst of gunfire tore through the kitchen cabinets. Cal rolled, coming up behind the island. Heavy boots approached the back door. He's just a fucking teacher, someone shouted. How is he? The man's words cut off as Cal's shot found him. The body fell halfway through the doorway, causing the others to hesitate. That hesitation was all Cal needed, that he moved through the house like a ghost, using years of training and experience. Each movement was calculated, each shot precise. These men were used to being the hunters. They didn't know how to handle becoming prey, that a figure burst through the front door. Jace Riggins, Salazar's second-in-command. He got off 2 wild shots before Cal's bullet caught him in the shoulder. Riggins went down, crawling backward, his eyes wide with terror. Holy shit, Riggins gasped, blood seeping between his fingers where he clutched his wound. We were sent to kill a ghost. Cal emerged from the shadows, weapon trained on Riggins' head. Who hired you? Vaughn? Red Vaughn. Riggins coughed, spitting blood. Said it was an easy job. Insurance scam. Just some teacher. What about the woman? She set it up. Gave us the layout security codes. Said she'd make it look like a robbery. Riggins' eyes darted around, searching for escape. What the fuck are you? Cal's expression remained impassive. Get up. What? Get up and crawl away. Tell Salazar what happened here. Riggins stared at him in disbelief. You're letting me live? I'm sending a message. Cal's voice was cold. Tell them who they're dealing with. Tell them what's coming. Riggins scrambled to his feet, clutching his wounded shoulder. He stumbled toward the trees, leaving a trail of blood in the snow. Cal watched him go, counting in his head. 5 men down, 1 messenger sent. The hunt was proceeding exactly as planned, that he turned back to the cabin. Somewhere inside, Delilah was waiting, probably wondering why her perfect plan had gone so wrong. It was time for their next conversation, one that would begin stripping away her carefully constructed lies. The night was still young, and he had so many lessons left to teach. The cabin creaked in the mountain wind, glass crunching under Cal's boots as he moved through the wreckage. Smoke from the treated logs still hung in the air, mixing with the sharp scent of gunpowder. He found Delilah in the kitchen, crouched behind the granite island. Her eyes were wide, but he noticed her breathing was too controlled for genuine terror. Cal! She launched herself at him, arms wrapping around his neck. Oh God! I was so scared. What happened? Who were those men? He let her hold him, feeling her heart racing against his chest. Even now, she was playing her role perfectly. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe now." Delilah pulled back, her hands running over his chest as if checking for injuries. "We need to call the police. Those men, they try to kill me?" Cal's voice remained gentle, but his eyes had gone cold. "That was the plan, wasn't it?" She froze, her hands still on his chest. "What? I don't understand." "Really?" Cal walked to the broken window, glass crunching under his feet. "Should we talk about the life insurance policy? Or your meetings with Red Vaughn? Or maybe the money you've been moving offshore?" Delilah's expression shifted, fear giving way to calculation. She stepped back, putting the kitchen island between them. "How long have you known?" "Long enough." Cal turned to face her. The text message was sloppy. "You should have been more careful with your phone." A bitter laugh escaped her lips. "Careful? I spent months being careful, planning every detail, making sure everything was perfect." Her mask was falling away completely now. "Do you know what it's like being married to a ghost? The perfect husband who's never really there." "I gave you everything," Cal said, his voice deadly quiet. "A life most people only dream about. You gave me a lie." Delilah's composure cracked. "The devoted teacher, the simple life, it never felt real. I saw it in your eyes sometimes, this other person hiding beneath the surface. I knew there was more." Cal moved toward her, his steps measured. "So, you decided to have me killed? Take the insurance money and run away with a two-bit criminal? Rhett sees me for who I am." She lifted her chin defiantly. "He doesn't hide behind masks. No, he hides behind the cartels. Tell me, did he mention what they'll do when they find out this job went wrong? How they handle failure?" Something flickered in Delilah's eyes, the first real fear he'd seen. "You don't understand. We had it all planned. The robbery gone wrong, the grieving widow, the perfect insurance scam." Cal's smile was cold. "Except you chose the wrong target. Those men weren't hunting a teacher. They were hunting a ghost." "What are you?" Delilah whispered. "Someone who trusted you." Cal's voice carried no emotion now. "That was my mistake. But you made a bigger one. You thought you could betray me and profit from it." She backed away, her hip bumping the counter. "What are you going to do?" "Nothing. Yet." Cal picked up a shard of broken glass, turning it to catch the firelight. "First, you're going to watch everything fall apart. Your hidden accounts, your escape plans, your precious Rhett, all of it will crumble. And you'll understand exactly what you've done." "You're insane," Delilah breathed, but he heard the tremor in her voice. "No, I'm methodical." Cal set the glass down carefully. "You wanted to know who I really am? You're about to find out." A sound from outside made Delilah jump. Red and blue lights began flashing through the broken windows. Local police. Right on schedule. "Someone must have heard the gunshots," Cal said conversationally. "Time to play your role one last time. The terrified wife, the failed home invasion. Make it convincing. And if I tell them the truth?" Cal's laugh was soft and dangerous. "About hiring hitmen? About the insurance fraud? Or maybe about the offshore accounts? Go ahead. I'm sure the police would be very interested." Delilah's shoulders slumped as she realized her position. She was trapped, and they both knew it. The sound of car doors slamming echoed from outside. "Mr. Mercer?" "Mrs. Mercer?" A voice called out. "This is the sheriff's department. Is everyone all right in there?" "In here," Cal called back, his voice carrying just the right note of relieved tension. "We're okay. There were intruders, but they're gone now." He turned back to Delilah, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Showtime, darling. Don't disappoint me." The police interview lasted 2 hours. Cal played his part perfectly, the shocked teacher who'd managed to drive off the intruders through sheer luck. Delilah performed admirably too, clinging to him, her voice shaking as she described their terrifying ordeal. "You were lucky," the sheriff said, closing his notebook. "These mountains can be dangerous. Lots of desperate people looking for empty vacation homes to rob." "We understand," Cal replied, holding Delilah close. "I think we'll head back to Denver tonight. My wife needs to rest." After the police left, Delilah pulled away from him. Her eyes were hard now, all pretense gone. "You think you've won?" "This isn't about winning." Cal began gathering their belongings. This is about consequences. You chose this path. Now you'll see where it leads. Rhett won't let this go, she warned. He has connections. To the cartels? Cal's smile was predatory. The same cartels who don't tolerate failure? Who eliminate loose ends? I wonder how they'll react when they learn about tonight. Understanding dawned in Delilah's eyes. You let one of them live. The one who was shot, Jace Riggins. Marco Salazar's right-hand man. By now, he's telling them all about the ghost they were sent to kill. About how their perfect plan fell apart. Cal zipped up their bag. How do you think they'll respond? You're going to get us all killed. No, Cal corrected her. I'm going to watch as everything you built comes crashing down. The money, the connections, the escape plans, all of it. And when you have nothing left, when you're truly desperate, then we'll discuss consequences. They drove back to Denver in silence. The mountain road was dark, moonlight catching on patches of snow. Delilah stared out the window, her face reflected in the glass. The perfect mask she'd worn for so long was gone, replaced by something harder, more desperate. Cal kept his eyes on the road, but his mind was already moving to the next phase. Marco Salazar would react soon, demanding answers. Rhett Vaughn would panic, probably try to run. The cartels would start asking questions. And Delilah, his wife, his betrayer, would watch helplessly as her carefully constructed world imploded. The hunt wasn't over. It was evolving. 3 days after the cabin incident, Marco Salazar sat in his private office above a downtown Denver nightclub, listening to Jace Riggins' report. The wounded man's face was pale, his injured shoulder heavily bandaged. A ghost, Salazar repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. You're telling me we were sent to kill a ghost? You weren't there, Marco. Sweat beaded on Riggins' forehead. The way he moved, this wasn't some teacher. He took out the whole team like they were nothing. 5 of my best men. Salazar's fingers drummed on his desk. For a simple insurance job. Vaughn set us up, Riggins insisted. He had to know what we were walking into. Before Salazar could respond, his phone buzzed. The message contained a video file surveillance footage from the cabin. The timestamp showed the entire operation from multiple angles. They watched in silence as their team was systematically destroyed. Who sent this? Salazar demanded that a second message appeared. Rhett Vaughn doesn't tell you everything, does he? Across town, Cal watched their reaction through the nightclub security cameras he'd hacked. The seeds of doubt were planted. Now to water them with blood, that he checked his watch. In exactly 4 minutes, Miguel Torres, one of Salazar's surviving men, would leave the gym where he trained. Cal had been studying their routines, learning their patterns. Torres was predictable, always taking the same route home. Right on schedule, Torres emerged from the gym bag slung over his shoulder. Cal watched from his parked car as the man walked to his vehicle. Just before Torres reached for his car door, Cal's burner phone rang. Hello? Torres answered, confusion clear in his voice. Check your email, Cal said. The one about your sister's college tuition? Torres froze. Who is this? Someone who knows the cartel doesn't pay you enough to cover her education. Someone who knows you've been skimming from Salazar's accounts to make up the difference. How did you? In about 30 seconds, Salazar will receive proof of your theft. Unless what? Torres's voice cracked. Tell me everything about Vaughn's operation. Every detail you know about his deal with my wife. Torres looked around frantically, but he couldn't spot Cal's position. I can't. Salazar will kill me. He's going to kill you anyway, once he sees those records. But I can offer you a way out. Money for your sister's education. A new identity. A fresh start. A long pause followed. Cal could see Torres's internal struggle playing across his face. The woman your wife, Torres finally said. She contacted Vaughn 6 months ago. Said she had a perfect setup for an insurance scam. But Vaughn, he saw an opportunity for something bigger. Keep talking. He's been using this job to prove himself to the cartel. Promised them he could deliver something valuable. Not just the insurance money, something about classified information. Cal's fingers tightened on the phone. So that was it. They hadn't just been after the insurance payout. They'd hoped to find evidence of his real identity, his CIA connections, that explained the cartel's involvement in what should have been a simple scam. Thank you, Miguel. Cal's voice was eerily calm. Your sister's tuition is paid for the next 3 years. There's a packet in your gym bag with everything you need for a new life. I suggest you use it quickly. What about Salazar? Don't worry about Salazar. He'll be too busy to look for you. Cal ended the call, then sent the financial records to Salazar. He watched through his surveillance feed as the cartel leader received them, his face contorting with rage. Torres was already running, disappearing into the city with his chance at a new life. One more piece eliminated from the board that Cal's next target was Victor Kane, Salazar's demolitions expert. The man had been absent from the cabin attack, but Cal's intelligence suggested he was the link between Vaughn and the cartel. Time to sever that connection, that he found Kane at his usual bar, drowning his nerves in cheap whiskey. The man had been on edge since the cabin, jumping at shadows. He knew something was coming. He just didn't know from where. Cal slid onto the bar stool next to him. Victor Kane, the man who sells cartel secrets. Kane's hand froze halfway to his glass. Who the fuck are you? Someone who knows about your side deals. The information you've been feeding to rival cartels. The real reason you stayed away from the cabin that night. I don't know what you're talking about. Kane's voice was steady, but his eyes darted toward the exit. No. Cal pulled out his phone, playing a recording of Kane's recent conversation with a rival cartel member. Should we ask Salazar what he thinks? Kane's face went pale. What do you want? Tell me about Vaughn's real plan. The one involving CIA intelligence. It was supposed to be simple, Kane whispered, taking a long drink. The woman said her husband was hiding something. Said he disappeared sometimes, had secure calls we couldn't trace. Vaughn thought. He thought if we could find proof of CIA connections, the cartel would finally take him seriously. And my wife? Was she part of this bigger plan? Kane laughed bitterly. She just wanted you dead and her money. Didn't care about the rest. But Vaughn, he saw an opportunity. Used her desire for revenge to set up something bigger. Cal nodded slowly. One last question. Where is Vaughn meeting Salazar tonight? I can't. Kane's protest cut off as Cal's hand closed around his wrist, applying precise pressure to nerve points. The old warehouse, Kane gasped. Down by the river. Midnight. Cal released him. Good choice. Now about those rival cartel connections. Please, Kane begged. If Salazar finds out, he already knows. Cal stood, straightening his jacket. I sent him the proof an hour ago. I'd run if I were you. But we both know you won't make it far. He left Kane at the bar, terror etched on his face. By morning, the man would be dead, another loose end eliminated by Salazar's increasingly paranoid organization. Cal checked his watch. 3 hours until the midnight meeting. Time to prepare for the next phase of his hunt. Vaughn and Salazar together. It was an opportunity too perfect to waste. His phone buzzed with a message from Delilah. We need to talk. Please. Cal smiled coldly. Let her worry. Let her watch as every piece of her plan crumbled. Her time would come, but first, he had an appointment by the river. The hunt was reaching its climax, and blood would flow tonight. The old warehouse loomed against the Denver skyline, its weathered brick walls dark against the midnight sky. Cal watched from the shadows as 2 black SUVs pulled into the loading bay. Right on schedule. Through his thermal scope, he counted 6 heat signatures. Salazar's remaining men, plus Vaughn and Salazar himself, that he'd already surveyed the building thoroughly. Every exit, every hiding spot, every possible angle of attack had been mapped and memorized. The warehouse's security cameras now fed directly to his phone, giving him eyes on every corner of the building. Vaughn emerged from the first SUV, his expensive suit wrinkled from nervous sweat. Even from this distance, Cal could see the man's agitation in his jerky movements. The failed cabin hit had shaken his confidence, and now his cartel connections were questioning his judgment. Salazar stepped out of the second vehicle, flanked by his remaining guards. His usual swagger was gone, replaced by coiled tension. The loss of his men had hit him hard, but worse was the growing suspicion that he'd been played. Cal activated the directional microphone he'd planted earlier, their voices coming through his earpiece with crystal clarity. This is falling apart, Vaughn was saying, pacing nervously. We need to move now before what? Salazar's voice was deadly quiet. Before I discover more of your lies? Tell me about the teacher, Rhett. Tell me what you knew. I didn't know anything. The woman said he was just a teacher. Rich insurance policy, isolated cabin, it should have been simple. Simple. Salazar grabbed Vaughn's collar, slamming him against the wall. 5 of my best men are dead. Kane disappeared. Torres is gone. And now I hear whispers that you've been planning something bigger. Something involving CIA intelligence. Vaughn's eyes widened. Who told you? I did. Cal's voice echoed through the warehouse's speaker system. He'd hacked it earlier, along with the building's electrical grid. Time for truth, Rhett. Tell Marco what you really had planned. The lights went out, plunging the warehouse into darkness. Emergency lights cast sickly red shadows across the concrete floor. It's him, one of Salazar's men whispered. The ghost. Find him. Salazar shoved Vaughn aside, drawing his weapon. Now! Cal moved silently through the upper catwalks, watching through his night vision as the men below scattered. Amateur moves splitting up would only make them easier to eliminate. The teacher CIA. Vaughn shouted into the darkness. Deep cover operative. The wife confirmed it said he had secure communications. Unexplained absences. Think about it, Marco. With proof of his identity, we could have sold that information for millions. And you didn't think to tell me this before sending my men to die. Salazar's voice was ice. Would you have believed me? A teacher with a perfect cover, living right here in Denver? It was too perfect an opportunity. Cal dropped behind one of Salazar's men, his knife finding the gap between Kevlar plates. The body crumpled silently. For left. You used me, Salazar growled. Used my crew for your game. The insurance money was just the beginning, Vaughn pleaded. Once we had proof of his identity, another guard went down, a garrote wire ending his protests before they began. 3. The woman, Salazar said. Your lover. Where is she now? Safe. Hidden. Once this is done, the lights suddenly blazed back on. Cal stood on the catwalk above them, his weapon trained on the group below. Salazar's remaining men raised their guns, but their hands shook. She's not as hidden as you think, Cal said conversationally. And she's not as loyal as you believe. Should we show them the other messages, Rhett? The ones where she promised Salazar a bigger cut if he eliminated you after the job. Vaughn's face went pale. She wouldn't. She would. Just like she planned to eliminate me. Delilah doesn't love anyone except money. Cal's smile was cold. Now about those CIA connections you were hoping to expose. Please, Vaughn raised his hands. We can make a deal. Whatever you want. I want you to deliver a message. Cal's voice hardened. To everyone who thought they could profit from my death. His first shot took down one of Salazar's remaining men. The second followed instantly. One left, Salazar fired upward, but Cal was already moving. He dropped to ground level, emerging behind them like a shadow made flesh. You're right about one thing, Cal said. I'm not just a teacher. Want to see what I really am? What followed was a demonstration of violence so precise, so clinical, that it barely looked real. Salazar's last man tried to run, making it 3 steps before falling. Salazar himself managed to get off 2 more shots before Cal disarmed him with mechanical efficiency. Please, Salazar gasped, clutching his broken arm. The cartels, they'll want revenge. No, they won't. Cal's voice was calm. Because officially, this was a deal gone wrong. Rival cartel territory dispute. By morning, the evidence will be perfectly clear. He turned to Vaughn, who had backed himself into a corner. As for you, wait. Vaughn's composure shattered completely. The woman, your wife, she has files. Evidence about you. If anything happens to me. You mean these files? Cal held up a phone, displaying documents he'd already recovered. The ones she kept as insurance? I found those days ago. Would you like to know what else I found? Vaughn's eyes darted between Cal and Salazar, looking for escape and finding none. The cartel money you've been skimming. The side deals with their rivals. The evidence is already in their hands. Cal's smile was terrible to behold. You didn't just fail them, Red. You betrayed them. No. Understanding dawned in Vaughn's eyes. Yes. Cal stepped back. Mr. Salazar, I believe this is cartel business now. I'll leave you to it. He walked away as Salazar advanced on Vaughn, vengeance replacing pain in his eyes. The sounds that followed would ensure the message was clear to anyone else who thought of crossing him outside. Cal made an anonymous call to police about gunfire at the warehouse. By morning, they'd find a scene that told the story he wanted told. A cartel deal gone wrong, multiple casualties, nothing to suggest anything more than criminal violence that he checked his phone. One message from Delilah. "Whatever you're doing, please stop. We can talk about this." Cal smiled coldly as he drove away from the warehouse. She learned soon enough that talking was over. Her conspirators were eliminated, her plans destroyed, her options gone. Now it was time for the final lesson. 1 week after the warehouse incident, Delilah sat in her Mercedes outside Denver National Bank, staring at her phone's banking app in disbelief. Every account, even the hidden ones she thought untraceable, showed the same balance: zero. Her fingers trembled as she dialed her private banker in the Cayman Islands. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Mercer." The banker's voice was carefully neutral. "The accounts have been flagged for potential criminal activity. All assets are frozen, pending investigation." "This is impossible." Delilah's voice cracked. "Those accounts were secure. The routing was perfect. Perhaps you should discuss this with your husband." The line went dead. Delilah looked up to see her reflection in the rearview mirror. Designer clothes, perfect makeup, carefully maintained image. But her eyes showed rising panic. Everything was falling apart. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "The man you betrayed was never a teacher." She immediately tried calling Rhett, but his number was disconnected. She'd been trying to reach him for days, ever since the news about the warehouse massacre hit the papers. The official story called it cartel violence, but she knew better. She'd seen what Cal was capable of at the cabin. The sound of tapping on her window made her jump. A police detective stood there, badge held up against the glass. With trembling fingers, she lowered the window. "Mrs. Mercer." The detective's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I'm Detective Morrison. We need to ask you a few questions about Rhett Vaughn and some suspicious financial transactions." "I don't know any Rhett Vaughn," she said automatically. That Morrison's smile widened as he held up a manila envelope. "Really? Then perhaps you can explain these photos of your meetings with him, or the wire transfers, or the interesting emails about life insurance policies." Delilah's carefully maintained composure cracked. "I want my lawyer." "Of course." Morrison handed her a card. "We'll be in touch." "Oh, and Mrs. Mercer? I'd advise against trying to leave the country. Your passport has been flagged." She watched him walk away, her mind racing. Cal had promised she'd watch everything crumble, but this was worse than she'd imagined. Her money, her connections, her escape plans, all of it was being systematically destroyed. Driving home, she noticed a black SUV following her. When she took a series of random turns to lose it, 2 more appeared. They weren't trying to be subtle anymore. They wanted her to know she was being watched. The house was dark when she pulled into the garage. Cal's car was gone, probably at the school, maintaining his perfect cover as the dedicated teacher. She'd once found that devotion to his students endearing. Now she understood it was just another layer of his deception. Inside, she poured herself a generous glass of wine, trying to steady her nerves. The house felt different now, every shadow potentially hiding secrets. How many cameras were watching her? How many of her conversations had he recorded? Her phone buzzed again, another unknown number. "Hello." Her voice wavered slightly. "Mrs. Mercer." The voice was unfamiliar, with a hint of a Mexican accent. "We need to discuss your husband." "Who is this?" "Someone who lost valuable men because of your little insurance scam. Someone who doesn't appreciate being used." Her hand tightened on the wine glass. "I don't know what you're talking about." "No. Let me refresh your memory. A cabin in the mountains. A team of professionals. A supposedly easy target who turned out to be something else entirely." "Please," Delilah whispered. "I can explain." "To who? Rhett Vaughn? He can't help you anymore. Your banker friends? They've abandoned you. Your husband?" A cold laugh. "The ghost who's systematically destroying everything you built?" "What do you want?" "Want? I want to understand how a simple teacher's wife thought she could play games with the cartel. I want to know what else you're hiding about your husband's real identity. But mostly, I want you to understand exactly what kind of war you started." The line went dead. Delilah's legs gave out, and she sank onto the couch. The wine glass slipped from her fingers, red liquid spreading across the white carpet like blood. Her phone buzzed one final time. A message from Cal, coming home early today. We should talk. Panic clawed at her throat. She ran upstairs, pulling out her emergency bag, the one she prepared months ago for exactly this type of situation. But when she opened it, instead of cash and fake passports, she found only a single note in Cal's precise handwriting. Did you really think I wouldn't find this? The sound of the garage door opening echoed through the house. Cal was home. Delilah stood frozen at the top of the stairs, watching as her husband entered. He looked exactly the same as always. Dress shirt, tie slightly loosened, briefcase in hand. The perfect image of a high school teacher after a long day of classes. But now she saw what she'd been missing all these years. The predatory grace in his movements, the calculated awareness of every angle and shadow. Rough day? Cal asked pleasantly, setting his briefcase down. You look stressed. Stop this, she said, her voice shaking. Whatever game you're playing. Game? He looked up at her, and his eyes were cold. You're the one who decided to play games, Delilah. Games with killers. Games with cartels. Games with my life. I had my reasons. Yes, 2.5 million of them. Cal's smile was terrible to behold. Plus the house, of course. Tell me, was it worth it? Watching everything fall apart piece by piece. She descended the stairs slowly, keeping her distance. What do you want from me? Want? I want you to understand exactly what you've done. Who you betrayed. He loosened his tie further. The detective who visited you today? Just the beginning. The cartel calling? They're very interested in what you know about me. I don't know anything. They don't believe that. Neither does the FBI, by the way. They're looking into your offshore accounts as we speak. Apparently, there are some interesting connections to known criminal enterprises. Delilah's composure shattered completely. You're going to get me killed. No. Cal's voice was soft, dangerous. I'm going to watch you destroy yourself. Every attempt to escape will only tighten the noose. Every person you turn to for help will already be compromised. He walked to the kitchen, perfectly at ease, and began making coffee as if they were having a normal conversation. The police are watching the house, he continued conversationally. The cartels are watching the house. My own surveillance is watching the house. You're the center of attention, darling. Exactly what you always wanted, isn't it? Delilah gripped the stair railing for support. I never meant to get caught. To discover your husband wasn't the simple teacher you thought you could eliminate. Cal's laugh was cold. The lesson is just beginning, Delilah. And you're going to learn it very, very thoroughly. 2 days after their confrontation in the house, Delilah's phone rang. She was sitting in a cheap motel room, having fled the house in desperation. The caller ID showed Cal's number. Her hand shook as she answered. Cal, I made a mistake. His voice sounded different, vulnerable, almost afraid. This has gone too far. We need to talk. Delilah sat up straighter, hope and suspicion warring in her mind. Talk about what? About us. About everything. He paused. I love you, Delilah. Despite everything, I still love you. Cal, She closed her eyes, tears threatening. I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this. Meet me, he interrupted. There's an old warehouse on Industrial Drive. Come alone. We can fix this together. The line went dead. Delilah stared at the phone, her mind racing. It could be a trap. After everything that had happened, it probably was a trap. But what choice did she have? Her money was gone. Her allies dead or disappeared. Her options exhausted. The warehouse loomed against the evening sky, its broken windows like dead eyes. Delilah parked her Mercedes in the empty lot, checking her makeup in the rearview mirror one last time. If there was any chance to salvage this situation, she had to play it perfectly. The side door was unlocked. Inside, emergency lights cast sickly yellow shadows across abandoned machinery. Her heels clicked on the concrete floor, the sound echoing in the vast space. Cal! Her voice bounced off the walls. I'm here. No response. She moved deeper into the warehouse, her designer dress out of place among the rust and decay. A sound from ahead made her pause, something between a grunt and a muffled cry rounding a corner. She stopped dead. Rhett Vaughn sat tied to a metal chair, his expensive suit torn and bloody. His face was bruised, one eye swollen shut. When he saw her, he tried to speak through the gag in his mouth. "He's been eager to talk to you." Cal's voice came from behind her. She spun to find him emerging from the shadows, still wearing his teacher's outfit. Dress shirt, tie, slacks. But his eyes were different now. Cold. Predatory. "What is this?" Delilah's voice shook. "A reunion." Cal moved to Rhett, removing his gag. "Tell her, Rhett. Tell her about your grand plans." Vaughn coughed, spitting blood. "Delilah, baby, I'm sorry. They made me talk. The cartel, they broke me." "What did you tell them?" "Everything. The insurance scam, the offshore accounts, the plan to expose your husband's CIA connections." His voice cracked. "They know it all now." Cal smiled coldly. "Not just the cartel. The FBI, CIA, and DEA, everyone knows. Your little insurance scam opened quite a few interesting doors. You said we could fix this." Delilah turned to Cal, desperation in her voice. "You said you still loved me." "I lied." Cal's voice was emotionless. "Just like you've been lying for months. The difference is I'm better at it." He drew a knife from his pocket, the blade gleaming in the emergency lights. Delilah took a step back, but he wasn't looking at her. Instead, he walked to Rhett, cutting his bonds. "What are you doing?" Delilah asked. "Giving you a choice." Cal tossed the knife onto the floor between them. "You both wanted me dead. Now you can fight for your own survival." "This is insane," Delilah whispered. Rhett rose unsteadily from the chair, his eyes fixed on the knife. "He's going to kill us anyway." "Maybe." Cal backed away, watching them both. Or maybe one of you walks out of here. Your choice." Delilah looked at Rhett, the man she'd thought would give her a new life, who now stood bloodied and broken. Then at Cal, her husband, the ghost she'd never truly known, watching them with cold satisfaction. "Please," she tried one last time. "I love you." "No," Cal's voice was ice. "You love what you thought I was?" Rhett lunged suddenly, diving for the knife. His fingers closed around the handle as Delilah backed away. But months of planning together, of plotting Cal's death, had forged a bond between them. Rhett held the knife out, handle first. "Together," he said, "like we planned." For a moment, Delilah hesitated. Then her hand closed around the knife handle. In one fluid motion, she drove the blade into Rhett's chest. Devon's eyes widened in shock. "Why?" "Because you failed," Delilah whispered, twisting the blade. "Everything we planned, everything we built, you ruined it all." Rhett collapsed, blood spreading across his expensive suit. Delilah pulled the knife free, turning to face Cal. Her designer dress was splattered with red, her perfect makeup streaked with tears. "Is this what you wanted?" she demanded. "To watch me become a killer? I wanted you to show your true nature." Cal's voice was calm. The ruthless survivor who'd do anything to save herself. The woman who could plot her husband's murder for money. The real Delilah Mercer. She gripped the bloody knife tighter. "And now what?" "Now?" Cal raised his gun, the sound of the safety clicking off echoing in the vast space. "Now you understand exactly who you tried to betray." "I understand," Delilah's voice cracked. "You're not just a teacher. You're not even just a CIA operative. You're something else entirely. I'm the ghost you tried to murder." Cal's aim was steady. "The man whose life you thought you could take for insurance money." "Please." She let the knife clatter to the floor. "I love you." "No." Cal's voice was final. "You love what you thought I was." The gunshot echoed through the warehouse. Delilah's body crumpled beside Rhett's, their blood mingling on the concrete floor. Cal looked down at them both. The wife who'd betrayed him, the man who'd helped her plot his death. He pulled out his phone, dialing a secure number. "It's done. Cleanup required at the location we discussed. Make it look like they killed each other." Within an hour, professional cleaners had arrived. They knew their job by morning. The scene would tell the story Cal wanted told. A lover's quarrel turned deadly. A woman and her criminal boyfriend, their plot exposed. Turning on each other in desperation, Cal Mercer disappeared that night. The dedicated history teacher submitted his resignation via email, citing personal reasons. The house was sold, the belongings donated or disposed of. A month later, a new teacher arrived at a private school on the East Coast. Different name, different background, different life. But one thing remained the same. He never forgave betrayal in his new classroom. He stood before his students, explaining the importance of learning from history's lessons. On his desk, a newspaper clipping lay buried under student papers. The story of a tragic murder-suicide in Denver, now forgotten by all except the ghost who had orchestrated it. The lesson was complete. And like all his lessons, it would never be forgotten. The morning after the warehouse incident, Detective Morrison stood in the Denver Police Department, staring at the crime scene photos. The story seemed clear enough. Two lovers turned on each other when their criminal enterprise collapsed. But something about it nagged at him. The husbands disappeared, his partner said, dropping a file on the desk. Cal Mercer resigned from his teaching position by email. House is already on the market. Morrison picked up the file, studying the photo of the mild-mannered history teacher. What do we know about him? Nothing suspicious. Teacher for 5 years at Denver West High. Popular with students. Regular guy who got caught up in his wife's schemes. Too regular, Morrison muttered. He pulled up the husband's background on his computer. Everything looked perfect. Education records, employment history, tax returns. It was all there, all verifiable. All too perfect. His phone rang. The caller ID showed his FBI contact. Drop it, the federal agent said without preamble. Morrison frowned. Drop what? The Mercer case. It's being classified as a murder-suicide. Case closed. But the husband doesn't exist anymore. The agent's voice was firm. This comes from way above my pay grade. Whatever you think you found, whatever questions you have, forget them. The line went dead. Morrison looked again at the crime scene photos, then at Cal Mercer's teaching ID. Something about the eyes, but he was already forgetting what he'd noticed. Some stories were better left untold. 3 weeks later, a moving truck pulled up to a Victorian house in a quiet Massachusetts suburb. Neighbors watched with mild interest as a well-dressed man in his late 30s supervised the unloading of furniture. Welcome to the neighborhood, a woman approached with a basket of muffins. I'm Ellen from next door. We're so excited to have a new teacher at Brunswick Academy. James Phillips, Cal replied, accepting the basket with a warm smile. The name felt natural on his tongue. He'd been building this identity for years, keeping it in reserve like a well-maintained weapon. Thank you for the welcome. Single? Ellen asked with the practiced casualness of a neighborhood matchmaker. Widowed, he replied, letting just the right amount of sadness touch his eyes. It's why I needed a fresh start. Oh, you poor dear. Ellen's sympathy was genuine. Well, you'll find this is a wonderful community. Very supportive. Cal thanked her again and went inside, setting the muffin basket on his new kitchen counter. The house was perfect, historic enough to explain any quirks in the architecture, modern enough to accommodate his security needs. By nightfall, the security systems would be installed, the surveillance equipment hidden, the safe room prepared. His phone buzzed with a message from his CIA handler. Ghost protocol completed. All traces eliminated. Cal deleted the message. His old life in Denver had been systematically erased. Cal Mercer, the high school history teacher, had never really existed. Neither had his marriage to Delilah, their life together, or the bloody end to their story. The next morning, he stood before his new class at Brunswick Academy. 30 students looked back at him, eager to learn about history from their new teacher. Good morning, he said, writing his name on the board. I'm Mr. Phillips, and I'll be teaching American history. Today, we're going to discuss how the past shapes our present, and why some lessons can never be forgotten. A student raised her hand. Mr. Phillips, did you teach somewhere else before coming here? Yes, he smiled, the expression reaching his eyes with practiced ease. But that's a story for another time. That evening, he sat in his study, grading papers just as he had in Denver. But now there were no hidden tensions, no betrayals lurking beneath the surface. His new life was exactly what it appeared to be. A dedicated teacher, starting fresh after personal tragedy. His secure phone buzzed once. A message from an untraceable number. Cartel leadership satisfied with Denver resolution. No loose ends. Another buzz. CIA assets confirm complete elimination of previous identity. Ghost protocol successful. Cal deleted both messages. The final pieces were in place. His old life was gone. The lessons of betrayal written in blood and buried in a Denver warehouse. Even Delilah's offshore accounts had been emptied, the money distributed to various charities. A final irony, she would have hated that a knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. Ellen from next door stood there with a pot of soup. "Thought you might like some dinner," she said. "First week in a new place is always overwhelming." "That's very kind," Cal replied, accepting the pot with genuine appreciation. This was what normal people did. They brought soup to new neighbors, shared concern for others, built communities based on trust, but as he closed the door, his smile faded. Trust was a weapon that could be turned against you. Delilah had taught him that lesson well, and he would never forget it. Let the world see James Phillips, the grieving widower building a new life. The ghost beneath that identity would remain vigilant, ready for any threat that in his study. He opened his laptop to check the encrypted messages from his various monitoring systems. The Denver investigation was officially closed. Detective Morrison had been reassigned to routine cases. The cartel had accepted the official story. Even the CIA had classified everything related to Cal Mercer's identity perfect that he picked up his red pen and returned to grading papers. Tomorrow, he would teach his students about the past, about actions and consequences, about the importance of learning from history's harsh lessons, but his own lesson, the one written in betrayal and sealed in blood, would remain his alone. A reminder that some ghosts never truly die. They just find new shadows to haunt. The chatter of other diners faded into a soft murmur as August Keene studied his wife's face across the table. 10 years of marriage, and still, he found himself captivated by the elegant curve of her cheekbones and the way her blue-gray eyes caught the candlelight. But tonight, something was off. "You've barely touched your appetizer," August said, setting down his fork. Rhea looked up, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "My stomach's a bit off. Nothing to worry about." August nodded, unconvinced. The restaurant, one of Austin's most exclusive, hummed with activity around them. White tablecloths, crystal glasses, and the quiet efficiency of the waitstaff created a cocoon of refinement that had cost him a small fortune to secure for their anniversary. "We could have rescheduled if you weren't feeling well," he offered. "On our 10th anniversary? I wouldn't dream of it." Rhea reached across the table and squeezed his hand briefly. "Let's order some wine. That might help." August signaled the sommelier, but his attention remained on Rhea. She'd been distant lately, subtle shifts in behavior that his analytical mind couldn't help but catalog. Tonight, she'd worn the silver pendant he'd bought her for their 5th anniversary, but not the matching earrings. Her makeup was immaculate, but heavier than usual. Her posture was rigid, her laugh a beat too slow. The waiter approached with their main courses, setting down plates of expertly prepared beef tenderloin with truffle reduction. "Anything else I can get for you, sir?" the waiter asked, his voice professionally neutral. "No, thank you," August replied, adjusting his plate slightly. That's when he saw a small folded piece of paper tucked partially under his plate. With a casual movement, he picked it up while reaching for his napkin. "Excuse me for a moment," he said to Rhea, pocketing the note. "I need to use the restroom." In the privacy of a bathroom stall, August unfolded the note with steady hands. 5 words in neat, unfamiliar handwriting. "Don't eat. It's poison." A cold wave washed through him. His mind, trained through years of complex programming challenges to systematically evaluate problems, immediately began assessing possibilities. A prank? A mistake? The correct target? August splashed cold water on his face and stared at his reflection. His dark hair was neatly trimmed, his blue eyes now sharp with focus. He looked utterly ordinary, a successful software engineer celebrating an anniversary. Nothing about him suggested he should be the recipient of such a warning. He returned to the table, his demeanor composed despite the alarm bells ringing in his head. "Everything okay?" Rhea asked, her fork poised over her untouched meal. "Fine," August replied, sliding back into his seat. "Just needed a moment." He watched her carefully as she took a small bite of her food, then set her fork down again. "I think I'll just have some water," she said. "This rich food isn't agreeing with me tonight." August nodded, pretending to take a bite of his own meal while actually depositing it in his napkin. "Maybe we should skip dessert and head home early," he suggested. You can get comfortable, and I'll make you some tea. Relief flickered across Ria's face. That sounds perfect, actually. As August paid the bill, his mind methodically sorted through the events of the evening. The note wasn't a random occurrence. Someone had deliberately warned him, and Ria's behavior, her reluctance to eat, her eagerness to leave aligned too perfectly with a warning to be coincidental. The universe operated on logic and patterns. August had built his career understanding those patterns. Now, he would apply that same disciplined approach to understanding what was happening in his marriage. Streetlights swept rhythmically across the interior of their Audi as August drove through downtown Austin. Beside him, Ria stared out the passenger window, her profile illuminated in intermittent flashes. The restaurant really outdid themselves tonight, she said, breaking the silence. That wine pairing was exceptional. August noted the forced casualness in her tone. You hardly drank any, he replied evenly. I told you, my stomach feels off. Maybe I'm coming down with something. She turned to face him. Did you enjoy the food at least? It looked impressive, he said, deliberately vague. Not sure it lived up to the price tag. That's how these high-end places are, Ria said with a dismissive wave. More style than substance. August tightened his grip on the steering wheel. More style than substance. An apt description for things beyond overpriced restaurants. Do you remember our first anniversary? Ria asked. That Italian place on 6th Street? Where the waiter spilled red wine all over your new shirt. I remember, August said. You helped me soak it out when we got home. Ria smiled, seeming genuinely nostalgic. We were so broke back then. You were still at that startup, working insane hours. Things change, August said. The familiar landscape of their neighborhood came into view: manicured lawns, tasteful modern homes, the trappings of upper-middle-class success. For the better, Ria added quickly. Look at everything we've built together. August pulled into their driveway, the automatic lights illuminating their contemporary home. For bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, an open-concept living area, all the checkboxes of success properly ticked. He helped Ria out of the car, noticing how she subtly pulled away from his touch. Inside, Ria slipped off her heels at the door. I think I'll take a shower and head to bed early. Rain, check on that tea. Of course, August replied. I have some work emails to catch up on anyway. I'll be in my office. He watched her climb the stairs, her movements deliberately measured, as if she were performing for an audience. Once she disappeared into the master bathroom, August stood motionless in the entryway, listening to the distant sound of the shower, starting point 10 years. A decade of shared meals, vacations, arguments, reconciliations. A decade of building what he thought was a partnership. Now, standing in the home they'd chosen together, August felt like a stranger. He walked to the kitchen and retrieved a bottle of water from the refrigerator. His reflection distorted in the stainless steel door stretched and warped, just like his perception of his marriage had become in the span of a single evening. The shower upstairs shut off. August took his water and headed to his home office, closing the door behind him with a soft click. August's home office was a testament to his ordered mind. 3 monitors arranged precisely on a minimalist desk. Bookshelves organized by subject matter and then alphabetically. A whiteboard covered in neat handwriting project timelines and code snippets for his latest work project that he locked the door, then removed the note from his pocket and placed it on his desk. The paper was high quality, probably from the restaurant's own stock. The handwriting was precise, each letter carefully formed. Not Ria's looping script, which he knew intimately from a decade of birthday cards and shopping lists. August opened a drawer and withdrew a small file containing various documents with Ria's handwriting: birthday cards, notes, grocery lists. He compared them methodically to the warning note. Definitely not the same hand. S.O. who had written it? A waiter? A concerned patron who'd overheard something? And more importantly, was there any truth to the warning? August pulled his keyboard toward him and began to type. A new document, organized chronologically. He titled it Behavioral Changes and began listing observations. 3 months ago. Ria joins new gym/wellness center 2 months ago. New password on phone. Previously shared passwords. 2 months ago. Girls' night increases from monthly to weekly 6 weeks ago. New clothing purchases higher end than usual 1 month ago. Started cleanse diet from new nutrition coach 3 weeks ago. Changed perfume 2 weeks ago. Unexplained 2-hour absence when grocery shopping individually. Each item was innocuous. Together, they formed a pattern that August couldn't ignore. He opened his browser and logged into their shared cloud storage. Ria's phone automatically backed up to this account, a security measure they'd implemented years ago after she'd lost her previous device. The most recent backup was from yesterday. August navigated through folders, finding nothing immediately suspicious. Text messages were minimal, mostly logistics and brief exchanges with friends he recognized. Her call history showed frequent calls to a number he didn't recognize. August ran the number through a reverse lookup service. Adrian Sutter, nutritionist and wellness coach. The website showed a fit man in his early 40s with perfect teeth and a practiced smile. August leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled under his chin. A nutrition coach. That aligned with Ria's recent focus on clean eating and her new gym routine. But why the secrecy? Why the password-protected phone? Why the warning note at dinner? He returned to the cloud backup, diving deeper. Deleted items were more difficult to access, but not impossible for someone with his technical expertise. After nearly an hour of methodical work, August found a cache of deleted photos. His stomach tightened as the first image loaded. Ria, in their bed, naked except for the silver pendant he'd given her. Alone in this photo. But the implication of others being present during the photo session was cleared. August's face remained impassive as he continued through the recovered files. His heartbeat remained steady, his breathing controlled. Only the whitening of his knuckles as he gripped the edge of his desk betrayed any emotion. More photos appeared. Ria with a man he now recognized as Adrian Sutter. Not just any affair photos, these were intimate, explicit, taken in hotel rooms, in Adrian's office, in the front seat of Adrian's car. Then came the text messages, hundreds of them, recovered from deleted archives. August read through them methodically, cataloging information. A is getting suspicious, Ria had written 6 weeks ago. They always do eventually, Adrian had replied. But we have options. I'm not sure about this, Ria texted 2 weeks later. It seems extreme. It's perfectly natural, Adrian responded. I've helped others through similar situations. Trust me. And yesterday. Tomorrow night? After dinner. Everything's ready. Just make sure he eats it all. August closed the browser and sat motionless, processing. The evidence aligned perfectly with the warning. His wife and her lover had planned to poison him at their anniversary dinner. He should feel rage, betrayal, heartbreak. Instead, he felt an icy clarity descending like a protective shield. The problem was now defined, and defined problems could be solved. August pulled out a fresh notepad and began writing again, this time creating a structured investigation plan. He would need allies, evidence, a strategy. 10 years of marriage had ended tonight, though Ria didn't know it yet. What would replace? It was a precisely executed plan to ensure that those who had betrayed him would face consequences proportional to their actions. August Keene, senior software engineer and deceived husband, began to map out his code of justice. The university cafe buzzed with the energy of young minds fueled by caffeine and ambition. August sat at a corner table, watching the door. 3 days had passed since the anniversary dinner, and he'd maintained a careful facade of normalcy at home. He went to work, made appropriate small talk with Ria, and kept his discoveries locked away in encrypted files on his private server. Leo Gale pushed through the cafe door, scanning the room until he spotted August. Tall and lanky, with perpetually disheveled hair, Leo looked every bit the academic he was. He approached August's table with a warm smile. 10 years, and you still look exactly the same, Leo said, sliding into the seat across from August. It's almost disturbing. Disciplined living. August replied with a faint smile. You, on the other hand, are sporting some distinguished gray. Leo ran a hand through his salt and pepper hair. The students do that. Every semester adds another patch. He studied August's face. Your message was cryptic. Need to discuss a concerning pattern. What's going on? August had met Leo during their undergraduate years, before August switched from psychology to computer science. Leo had stayed the course, eventually earning his PhD and securing a teaching position at Austin University. More importantly, he'd remained a friend even as their paths diverged, one of the few people August truly trusted. "I need your professional perspective," August said, keeping his voice low. "And your discretion." Leo's expression grew serious. "Of course." August placed a manila folder on the table. "My wife is having an affair with her nutrition coach. They planned to poison me at our anniversary dinner 3 nights ago." Leo's eyes widened, but he didn't interrupt. "I was warned anonymously," August continued. "I've since verified the affair and found text messages suggesting they were planning to dose me with something. I need to understand what I'm dealing with, both psychologically and practically." Leo slowly opened the folder, scanning the printed text messages and photos August had selected. His face remained professionally neutral, though his fingers tightened on the paper. "Jesus, August," he finally said. "Have you gone to the police?" "With what?" "Text messages about making me eat something? Photos proving my wife is unfaithful but not criminal? I need more." Leo nodded slowly. "What do you need from me?" "2 things. First, your psychological assessment of what might motivate someone to take this path. Second, your help in tracking patterns and gathering evidence." Leo rubbed his chin. "The psychological component is complex. Affairs happen for many reasons: boredom, unmet needs, opportunity, character flaws. But escalating to harm." He paused, thinking. "That suggests either significant external pressure or a more disturbing psychological profile. And this Adrian Sutter? The nutrition coach. If he's suggesting poison as a solution, this isn't his first rodeo," Leo said grimly. "Manipulators like this usually have a history. They identify vulnerable targets and exploit them." August nodded. This aligned with his own analysis. "I need to know if he's done this before. I have access to academic databases, court records. I can help research him," Leo offered. "But August," he leaned forward, "what's your endgame here? Divorce? Prosecution? Justice?" August said simply. "Proportional consequences for their actions." Leo studied his friend's face. "You're remarkably calm for someone who just discovered his wife is plotting with her lover." "Emotions cloud judgment," August replied. "I need clarity right now." "Compartmentalization only works for so long," Leo warned. "Eventually, you'll have to process this." "I'll process it when I've resolved it," August said firmly. "Will you help me?" Leo closed the folder and slid it back across the table. "Of course I will. But promise me one thing: no matter what we find, we stay within legal boundaries. Evidence gathering only." August gave a single, decisive nod. "Agreed. Then let's get started," Leo said. "Tell me everything else you know about this Adrian Sutter." The next morning, August sat in his car across the street from Austin Wellness, a sleek, modern building of glass and brushed steel. According to their website, they offered everything from nutritional counseling to specialized fitness training. Adrian Sutter was listed as their head nutrition consultant. August checked his watch. 9:15 a.m. According to the schedule he'd found on Ria's cloud account, she had an appointment with Adrian at 9:30 a.m. She told August she was meeting a friend for breakfast. At T9:22, Ria's white SUV pulled into the parking lot. August watched as she checked her makeup in the rearview mirror before exiting the vehicle. She looked confident, happy even, as she walked into the building. August started a timer on his phone. If this was truly a professional nutrition consultation, it should last approximately an hour. While waiting, he opened his laptop and connected to a secure hotspot. Leo had sent over preliminary research on Adrian Sutter last night. The man's professional credentials were legitimate licensed dietitian with a master's degree in nutritional science from a reputable university. His business seemed successful, with glowing online reviews and a respectable social media following. But there were gaps in his history. A 2-year period where he seemed to disappear from public records, followed by a relocation to Austin from Seattle. No criminal record, but a few civil complaints that had been settled out of court. Nothing that explicitly raised red flags, but enough inconsistencies to warrant deeper investigation. August timer hit the 45-minute mark when Ria emerged from the building. She wasn't alone. Adrian Sutter walked beside her, his hand resting casually on the small of her back. They stopped by her car, standing closer than any professional relationship would justify. Adrian said something that made Ria laugh, then quickly scanned the parking lot before kissing her. August took several photos with a telephoto lens attached to his phone. More evidence for the file. The kiss ended, and Adrian handed Ria what appeared to be a small paper bag. She placed it in her purse, nodded at something he said, then got in her car. August waited until both Ria and Adrian had left before driving to his next destination, the university library, where Leo had secured a private research room. Leo was already there when August arrived, surrounded by printouts and an open laptop. "You're not going to like what I found," Leo said without preamble. August set down his bag. "Tell me." Adrian Sutter worked at a wellness center in Seattle called Pure Life. 5 years ago, one of his clients, a woman named Eliza Brandt, was widowed when her husband died suddenly of what was initially ruled natural causes heart failure. Leo slid a printout across the table. It was a news article with a photo of a grieving woman standing next to Adrian at a funeral. The autopsy showed elevated levels of a compound derived from certain herbal supplements, Leo continued. Nothing illegal on its own, but in high concentrations, it can stress the cardiovascular system. Not enough evidence to rule it homicide, but enough questions that the insurance company delayed payment. "Let me guess," August said. Adrian testified about the husband's health. Leo nodded. So the man had pre-existing heart issues that he'd been treating holistically. The case was eventually closed as an accidental death. 6 months later, Adrian moved to Austin and opened his practice here. 9 months after that, Eliza Brandt moved to Austin too. They were briefly together, then separated. August processed this information. "So he's done this before." "Possibly," Leo cautioned. "It's circumstantial, but combined with those text messages you found, he let the implication hang in the air." "I need access to their current communications," August decided. "And I need to know exactly what compound they're planning to use." "That's crossing into legally questionable territory," Leo warned. "Not if I only access accounts and devices that are legally mine," August countered. "The cloud account is joint, registered to both of us, and I can place monitoring software on my own home network." Leo looked unconvinced but didn't argue further. "What about the compound? That bag he gave her today could contain it." "I'll find it," August said. "I need to know what we're dealing with." "If it's the same substance used in Seattle, that strengthens the case considerably." "And then what?" Leo asked. "Go to the police?" August's expression hardened. "First I gather irrefutable evidence. Then I decide how best to ensure they face appropriate consequences." "I know that. Look, August," Leo said warily, "you're planning something beyond simple evidence gathering." "I'm planning justice," August replied. "Nothing more, nothing less." As he left the library, August's phone buzzed with a text from Ria. "Working late tonight. Don't wait up for dinner. Love you." August texted back, "No problem. Take care. Love you too." The words felt foreign, a code he no longer understood. But they maintained the facade, which was all that mattered for now. The house was dark and silent when August finally returned home. Ria's "working late" had extended well past midnight, according to the GPS tracker he'd placed on her car earlier in the day. The tracker showed her vehicle parked outside an apartment complex across town, presumably Adrian's residence. August moved through the house methodically, setting up small, unobtrusive cameras in the kitchen, living room, and hallway. Nothing in the bedrooms or bathrooms. He had ethical lines he wouldn't cross, even now. He only needed to document their conversations about him, not their intimate moments that in his office. August connected the cameras to his private server and tested the feeds. Everything worked perfectly. Next, he turned his attention to Ria's home laptop. She rarely used it anymore, preferring her phone and tablet, but it remained on her desk in the spare bedroom she used as a craft room. August didn't need her password. As the household's technical support for a decade, he had administrator access to every device on the network. Within minutes, he'd installed monitoring software that would log all activity and forward it to a secure server. The final step was the most crucial. August needed to find a substance they planned to use. He started in the kitchen, methodically checking every cabinet, reading labels on every supplement and medication. Nothing seemed out of place that he moved to the master bathroom, searching through Ria's cosmetics and medications. Again, nothing unusual. Finally, he checked her closet, carefully examining bags and pockets without disturbing their arrangement. In the pocket of a rarely used gym bag, he found the paper sack Adrian had given her. Inside was an unlabeled amber bottle containing what appeared to be herbal capsules. August carefully removed two, placing them in a small evidence bag, then returned everything exactly as he'd found it. Back in his office, August uploaded all the day's findings to a secure server, then sent an encrypted message to Leo, "Need testing capabilities for unknown substance. Any contacts in the chemistry department?" Leo's reply came minutes later. "Professor Diana Vega. Discreet, thorough. Can meet tomorrow." August set the evidence bag aside and turned to his computer. Time to check the cloud backup again. Ria had been careless in the beginning, leaving traces of her affair in deleted files that August could recover. She'd grown more cautious recently, but people in the throes of infatuation rarely maintained perfect operational security. Sure enough, after several hours of methodical searching, August found a cache of recently deleted videos. His face remained impassive as he watched his wife and Adrian together in various hotel rooms, including one August recognized as the suite he'd booked for a business trip last month, a trip Ria had apparently made use of in his absence. More damning than the physical betrayal was the conversation August captured in one video. After their encounter, as they lay in August's paid-for hotel bed, Ria and Adrian discussed him. "He suspects nothing," Ria said on screen. "He's too wrapped up in his work to notice anything." "Men like him never do," Adrian replied, stroking her hair. "They think their big brains make them invulnerable. I still don't understand why we can't just—" Adrian cut her off. "A divorce would cost you half of everything. Is that what you want? To start our life together with half of what you deserve?" "No, but the compound is completely natural," Adrian assured her. "It stresses the heart initially, but the effects build over time. Multiple, small doses, carefully administered. By the time anything happens, it will look like natural causes. I've seen it work before." "You make it sound so clinical," Ria said. "It's chemistry, that's all," Adrian replied. "No different from all those programming problems your husband solves. Just a different kind of code." August stopped the video. The evidence was now overwhelming. His wife and her lover weren't just planning an affair, they were plotting his death for financial gain. He should feel devastated, enraged. Instead, he felt a cold clarity settle over him. This was no longer just about gathering evidence. This was about survival and injustice. August began typing again, outlining a new plan. This time, he wouldn't be the target. He would be the trigger. "You understand what you're showing me is deeply disturbing," Professor Diana Vega said, looking up from her microscope. A compact woman with intelligent eyes behind round glasses, she'd agreed to meet August and Leo in her private lab early on a Saturday morning as a favor to Leo. "I understand," August replied. "I only need to know what it is, not how to use it." Diana sighed. "It's a concentrated extract from a plant called monkshood, mixed with several other herbal compounds. Alone, in small doses, it's sometimes used in homeopathic medicine. In this concentration," she shook her head, "it would cause arrhythmia, elevated blood pressure, and significant cardiac stress. One dose wouldn't kill a healthy adult, but repeated exposure could trigger a cardiac event that might appear natural, especially in someone with any existing heart conditions." "Which I don't have," August noted. "Thank goodness for that," Diana said. "Where did you get this?" August and Leo exchanged glances. "Better you don't know," Leo told her. "But I assure you, we're gathering evidence, not planning to use it." Diana carefully sealed the capsules in an evidence container. "I'll provide a formal analysis for your records, but please tell me you're taking this to the authorities." "When we have enough evidence," August assured her. Later, as they walked across the nearly empty campus, Leo voiced his concerns. "She's right. We should take what we have to the police now." "It's not enough," August replied. "They've been careful. The substance isn't explicitly illegal. The messages are suggestive, but not definitive. I need irrefutable proof of intent. How do you plan to get that? Leo asked. They're unlikely to confess on record. People reveal their true intentions under pressure. August said. I've devised a scenario that will expose theirs. Leo stopped walking. What kind of scenario? A controlled environment. A private dinner where I can document their behavior and conversations. A situation where they believe they have the advantage, but where I'm actually in control. You're setting a trap, Leo realized, with yourself as bait. August continued walking. I'm setting a stage. And yes, I'll be playing a role, but they'll be the ones delivering the most important lines. This is dangerous, August. If they're willing to poison you once, they won't have the opportunity. August cut in. I'll control every element of the environment, including the food. In fact, I'm counting on their attempt. Leo caught up to him. You've already decided how this ends, haven't you? Justice has only one logical conclusion, August replied. Those who conspire to harm others must face consequences proportional to their intentions. That sounds disturbingly close to revenge. Revenge is emotional. This is rational. August stopped and turned to his friend. They plotted my death, Leo. Not a quick one, but a gradual poisoning designed to appear natural. They discussed it casually, like solving a math problem. They deserve whatever comes next. Leo studied August's face. Just promise me you won't cross a line you can't come back from. You're hurt and betrayed, and that's completely understandable. But don't let their actions transform you into something you're not. I'm not being transformed, August said quietly. I'm being revealed, perhaps for the first time. The conversation ended there, but August's planning continued. Over the next week, he gathered more evidence through the cameras he'd installed and the monitoring software on Ria's devices. He documented multiple instances where Ria added the capsules to his food or drinks, only for August to dispose of them when she wasn't looking. He recorded her phone conversations with Adrian, their growing impatience with the slow progress of their plan, their discussions of what they would do with August's life insurance and investment portfolio. Every piece of evidence was carefully logged and backed up to multiple secure locations. And with each new revelation, August refined his final scenario, the one that would bring everything into the open. A surprise dinner? Ria asked, her voice carrying the perfect note of pleased surprise. What's the occasion? August smiled across the breakfast table. Do I need an occasion to do something special for my wife? Consider it anniversary part 2. The first one didn't go as planned with you feeling unwell. That's so thoughtful, Ria said, reaching across to squeeze his hand. Where? It's a surprise. A private chef in a special location. I've arranged everything. Just be ready at 7 on Saturday. I can't wait, Ria said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. Should I dress up? Absolutely, August replied. It's going to be a night to remember. As soon as Ria left for her yoga class, which the GPS tracker showed was actually another visit to Adrian's apartment, August made his final preparations. He'd rented a commercial kitchen space that catered to food photographers and cooking classes in neutral location with excellent lighting and multiple angles for the cameras he would install. He contacted Adrian through an anonymous email account, posing as a wellness center looking for nutrition experts for a special event. The generous consultation fee he offered ensured Adrian accepted immediately, even when told the event was Saturday evening. August spent the day setting up the kitchen. Cameras were placed strategically to capture every angle. Microphones were hidden in decorative elements on the table. A separate prep area was established where August would prepare 3 identical-looking meals, 1 untouched for himself, and 2 containing a powerful but non-toxic purgative for Ria and Adrian. WY 6 p.m. Everything was ready. August surveyed the space one final time. The table was elegantly set, the lighting perfect, the surveillance system tested and functioning. All evidence was being streamed in real time to his secure server, with Leo monitoring remotely as a precaution. August prepared the 3 meals, wearing gloves and carefully keeping the portions separate. The purgative he'd chosen would cause significant discomfort, but no lasting harm, a proportional response to their plans for him. Each dish was covered with a silver dome, Ready to be served at T6:45, he changed into his suit and prepared for his guests. The final act was about to begin. The commercial kitchen had been transformed. Soft lighting, elegant table settings, and the gentle notes of classical music created an atmosphere of refined celebration. August stood by the door, watching as Ria's car pulled into the parking lot. Right on schedule, his pulse remained steady, his breathing controlled. Months of discovering betrayal and plotting response had honed his emotional control to a razor's edge. Tonight would proceed according to plan, each element carefully orchestrated. Ria entered first, wearing a sleek black dress August had never seen before. Her smile faltered momentarily when she saw the intimate setup. "This is not a restaurant," she said, glancing around. "Better," August replied, taking her coat. "Private chef, private space. Just for us." "You went all out," Ria said, recovering her composure. "It smells amazing. I have a few special touches planned," August said. "But first, I invited a surprise guest for the appetizer course. Someone you've been working with who's helped you so much lately." Ria's eyes widened slightly. "What do you mean?" The door opened behind them. Adrian Sutter walked in, freezing momentarily when he saw Ria. He recovered quickly, extending his hand to August. "Mr. Keene, I'm Adrian Sutter. I believe you contacted me about nutritional consultation for an event." August shook his hand firmly. "Indeed I did. Please come in. I believe you know my wife, Ria." Adrian glanced between them, his professional smile never wavering. "Mrs. Keene, yes. We've met at the wellness center." Ria's face had drained of color. "August, what is this?" "A celebration," August said smoothly. "You've been so dedicated to your new health regimen. I thought it would be nice to have your nutrition coach join us to discuss how we can both benefit from his expertise." The trap was set. August watched their micro-expressions, the panic behind their eyes, the subtle glances they exchanged, the careful recalibration of their approach. "What a thoughtful surprise," Ria finally said. "Adrian has been so helpful with my new diet plan. I'm honored to be included," Adrian added, his voice betraying no tension. August gestured toward the table. "Please sit. I prepared everything myself. A special menu designed with wellness in mind." They took their seats, Ria and Adrian careful to maintain appropriate distance. August brought the covered dishes from the warming area, setting one before each of them with a flourish. "Before we begin," August said, raising his water glass, a toast. "To health, to honesty, and to new beginnings." The irony wasn't lost on his guests, who raised their glasses with noticeably less enthusiasm. August removed the silver domes with a practiced movement. "Herb-crusted salmon with quinoa and roasted vegetables. All organic, of course." "This looks wonderful," Adrian said, examining the plate with professional interest. "You have culinary talents I wasn't aware of, Mr. Keene." "August, please. And I have many interests beyond programming. Cooking is a science of its own, wouldn't you agree? Combining elements in precise measurements to achieve desired results." Adrian nodded, taking a small bite. "Excellent flavor profile." Ria followed suit, though August noticed she was merely pushing food around her plate. "It's delicious, August. I had no idea you could cook like this. We've been married 10 years, and yet there's still so much we don't know about each other," August replied evenly. The conversation continued, a delicate dance of pleasantries and professional nutrition advice from Adrian. August ate his meal calmly, watching as both Ria and Adrian consumed their doctored portions. 20 minutes into the meal, Adrian shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Ria pressed a hand to her stomach, her face paling. "Is something wrong?" August asked innocently. "I'm suddenly not feeling well," Ria said. "Maybe it's just—" "The bathroom is through that door," August pointed. "Perhaps you need a moment." Ria hurried away. Adrian was now visibly uncomfortable, sweat beading on his forehead. "Are you also feeling unwell, Adrian?" August asked. "How strange. The food tastes fine to me." Adrian stood abruptly. "Excuse me, I need to—" "Before you go," August said, his voice dropping all pretense of warmth, "I think you should see something." August placed the folded note from their anniversary dinner on the table. "Your waiter warned me," he said. "He worked part-time at the restaurant, and recognized you, Adrian. You've done this before. Adrian stared at the note, his face contorting with both physical discomfort and shock. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? Eliza Brandt's husband in Seattle? Another nutritional client whose heart mysteriously gave out after months of your special supplements. Adrian's eyes darted toward the bathroom where Rhea had disappeared. This is absurd. I'm leaving. I wouldn't, August said calmly. Not unless you want the police to find you. They're on their way, along with paramedics. Don't worry, what you've ingested won't kill you. Unlike the Monkshood compound you and my wife have been adding to my food for weeks. The blood drained from Adrian's face. You have no proof of anything. I have everything, August replied. Every conversation, every text message, every video, the tainted capsules with your fingerprints, your previous victim in Seattle, and now your reaction to this confrontation, all being recorded as we speak. Adrian lunged forward suddenly, grabbing for August, but the purgative had weakened him considerably. August easily sidestepped, watching as Adrian collapsed to his knees. What did you give us? Adrian gasped. Just a taste of your own medicine, August replied, though significantly less lethal than what you planned for me. The bathroom door opened, and Rhea emerged, clinging to the doorframe for support. Her carefully applied makeup was smeared, her complexion ashen. August, we need to go to the hospital, she said weakly. Something's wrong with the food. Only your portions, August replied calmly. Mine was prepared separately. Rhea's eyes widened as understanding dawned. You poisoned us. I administered a powerful purgative, August corrected. Temporary discomfort, nothing more. Unlike the cardiac-stressing compound, you've been slipping into my meals for weeks. I don't know what you're talking about, Rhea said, but her denial lacked conviction. August reached into his jacket and removed a tablet. With a few taps, audio filled the room. Rhea and Adrian's voices from one of the recordings August had captured. How much longer will this take? Rhea's recorded voice asked. Patience, Adrian replied. We need to be careful with the dosage. Too much at once would raise suspicions. This way, his heart will gradually weaken until it simply gives out. A tragedy, but a natural one as far as anyone will know. Rhea staggered to a chair, collapsing into it. You've been spying on us. Gathering evidence, August corrected. After someone warned me at our anniversary dinner. Who? Rhea demanded. Does it matter? What matters is that I know everything. Your affair. Your plot. The compound from the same plant extract used on Adrian's previous victim in Seattle. Adrian, still on his knees, glared at August. You smug bastard. You think you're so clever. Not clever, August replied. Just methodical. While you were both plotting my demise, I was documenting every step. The evidence is already with my lawyer and several other secure locations. What do you want? Rhea asked, tears streaking her mascara. Money? Is that it? The question struck August as so fundamentally absurd that he actually laughed a short, harsh sound devoid of humor. What I want, he said, his voice low and precise, is justice. You planned to murder me slowly for financial gain, and you almost succeeded. The sound of sirens grew audible in the distance. Adrian tried to stand, stumbling toward the door, but another wave of cramping doubled him over. They're coming for you, August said. Both of you. The paramedics will treat your symptoms, and the police will take your statements. They already have copies of all my evidence. You can't prove anything, Adrian gasped. It's your word against ours. August walked to one of the decorative vases on a shelf and removed a small camera. It's your words against your words. Every conversation, every plan, every dose administered, all documented. Rhea began to sob, her body shaking. August, please. It wasn't my idea. Adrian convinced me. Don't. August cut her off. Don't insult what's left of our marriage with more lies. The recordings show your enthusiasm for the plan once the initial hesitation wore off. You discussed how you'd spend my life insurance, where you'd travel with my investment portfolio. The sirens were very close now. Flashing lights appeared through the windows. August, Rhea tried again, her voice breaking. 10 years together. That has to count for something. August looked at her, really looked at her, seeing not the woman he'd married, but the stranger she'd become, or perhaps always been. "It counted for nothing to you," he said quietly. "Why should it count for anything to me now?" The door burst open as paramedics entered, followed closely by police officers. August stepped back, allowing them to take control of the scene. An officer approached him. "Mr. Keene, I'm Officer Rivera. We received your call and the evidence files. Are you all right?" "I'm fine," August replied. "They're the ones who need medical attention. Non-lethal purgative in their food. Self-administered justice." Officer Rivera raised an eyebrow. "That's a matter for the courts to decide, sir." "Of course," August agreed. "Everything else is documented in the files I sent. I'll cooperate fully with your investigation." As the paramedics attended to Rhea and Adrian, August watched with detached composure. When they were escorted out, Rhea on a stretcher, Adrian in handcuffs, despite his physical distress, August remained behind to give his formal statement. The mask of love had been shattered, revealing the true faces beneath. And for the first time in months, August Keene breathed freely, unburdened by deception. 6 months later, August stood at the railing of his deck, watching the Colorado River flow past his new home. The modest riverside house was a stark contrast to the sleek modern home he'd shared with Rhea, but its simplicity suited him now. The trial had been mercifully brief. With the mountain of evidence August had gathered, including the chemical analysis of the poisonous compound and the video recordings of Rhea and Adrian discussing their plans, both had accepted plea deals rather than face full trials. Adrian, with his previous suspicious involvement in Seattle, had received the harsher sentence, 12 years for conspiracy to commit murder. Rhea had gotten 8 years, eligible for parole after 5 with good behavior. The sentencing judge had been particularly scathing about the calculated nature of their plan and the betrayal of marital trust. August took a sip of his coffee, listening to the birds in the cypress trees lining the riverbank. The divorce had been finalized 3 months ago. He'd sold the house, liquidated their joint investments, and started fresh. The settlement had been straightforward since Rhea had conspired to kill him for financial gain. She had forfeited any claim to their shared assets under Texas law. "Nice view," Leo said, joining August on the deck with his own coffee. "Much better than that sterile showplace you had before." "It suits me," August agreed. "Thanks for coming to check on me." Leo leaned against the railing. "No need for thanks. That's what friends do. How are the online classes going?" After leaving his software engineering position, August had started teaching coding to disadvantaged youth through an online platform. The work paid less, but gave him a sense of purpose he'd been lacking. "Going well," August replied. "I have some promising students. One girl in particular has a real aptitude for algorithmic thinking." "And how are you?" Leo asked. The question weighted with months of concern. "Really?" August considered the question. The initial shock had faded, leaving behind a clear-eyed perspective on what had happened. The rage that Leo had warned would eventually come had indeed arrived, weeks of sleepless nights and sudden, overwhelming waves of anger that had left him shaking. But even that had eventually passed, leaving a certain calm acceptance. "I'm okay," August said simply. "Not the man I was. Not sure who I'm becoming yet, but okay with the transformation." Leo nodded. "I was worried about you for a while there. The way you planned everything, it was so cold, so calculated." "It had to be," August replied. "Emotion would have made me careless." Still, the August I knew in college would have been destroyed by something like this. "Maybe I'm stronger than we thought," August suggested. "Or maybe betrayal reveals who we really are." They stood in companionable silence, watching a blue heron stalk through the shallows of the river. Finally, Leo asked the question he'd been dancing around for months. "Do you regret any of it? How you handled things?" August thought carefully before answering. "I regret trusting someone who saw my love as weakness," he said finally. "But I learned an important lesson. Some betrayals deserve to be punished, not forgiven." "That's a hard way to live," Leo observed. "Maybe," August conceded, "but it's honest. I don't pretend to be more forgiving than I am." A notification chimed on August's phone. Another student had submitted their project for review. Life continued, one line of code at a time. "I should get back to work," August said. "Stay for dinner? I'm trying a new recipe." Leo smiled. "Absolutely. Though maybe you should let me taste it first, just for old time's sake. For the first time in months, August laughed a genuine sound that surprised them both. Somewhere beneath the calculated logic and measured responses, something human remained, bruised but intact. Not forgiveness, perhaps, but a path forward nonetheless. As August turned to head inside, he took one last look at the flowing river. Water never flowed backward. It simply found new channels when old ones were blocked. He was doing the same moving forward, carving a new path through unfamiliar terrain. The betrayal would always be part of his story, but it would not be the end of it.